for me, what has changed the most, I'm talking about the present, but it's the future as well, is all this concept of behavioral tracking. So you can track your prospects, your customers, use my data, but don't abuse it. That's a very important thing. But though you can, rather than calling 10 times someone at the wrong time, now we call once at the right time. It's highly personalized. We know everything he's been doing, and they highly appreciate that. So I decreases a lot my prospection activity, and I'm just super targeted at the right time with the right people, and I know exactly who they are. And so this data behavioral tracking is key today. And if you're not doing it, that's something I highly recommend everybody to do.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Mathilda, this is her second panel today, so kind of a crazy day. There you go, doing everything in one day. So first of all, I think you guys are the best people to introduce yourselves. All I can tell you guys is that they're amazing. And so we're going to start with Yves. Maybe you can tell us a little bit, who you are and what you're doing at Hubspot. So we get some intro.
Hi everybody, nice to meet you all. It's great to be here, and thanks to the family for the invitation. I was trying to translate Sissi la famille in English, and that's very tough. So la famille yo-yo, I will remember that. So I'm Yves Bourgoin, sales manager at Hubspot. I've been working there for 3 years. I've been covering the UK as well. I was a sales in the past, so I know the job of selling as well directly. Did a bit of sales enablement, moved to the UK, and now taking care of the French market at Hubspot across 2 locations, Dublin and now Paris, because we have an office in Paris, and taking care of structuring our operations basically between 2 locations. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mathilda. I'm originally Greek. I'm actually very Greek. I have just come to France 3 months ago, so I have spent most of my professional career in the UK. I started at Groupon in a revenue management capacity. Then I joined Deliveroo 3.5 years ago, heading up the global sales strategy and operations team for 14 markets. And 3 months ago, I joined Site to head up growth. The growth team consists of 4 key teams: a commercial team, so sales, account management, and SDR, a site operations team, which is matching demand and supply, sales operations, and our marketing team. And that's me.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Shalom Malka. I joined a startup 4 years ago as a simple business developer when we were only 6. We are now more than 200 spread over 2 offices, Paris and New York. And as you guessed, this startup is Aircall. What we are doing at Aircall is pretty simple. We are providing a cloud-based phone system. We are reinventing the way people are using the phone within companies, but we are also providing advanced call center features. One of our main advantages is that we can integrate with a lot of other tools, like CRM, for example, Hubspot. Our customers are Miro, BlaBlaCar, or even Olympique Lyonnais. And I'm really glad to be here tonight to talk about one of my passions, sales.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. So let's dive right in. So sales is obviously a very, very, very key part of all of your organizations, and it always appears that people are talking about numbers and revenue and growth, and I think it would be really interesting for you guys to share your insights on the parallel that you can make between company culture. So today when we talk to startups at the family, we tell them to design their culture early and to write it down. So when you walk into your guys' offices, it's probably plastered on the wall what your values are, what you stand for, what is your mission. I'm wondering, is there an equivalent in sales? Is there such a thing as a sales philosophy? And I would like to start with HubSpot, because you guys published this super famous thing called the customer code. And you talk a lot about customer centricity, and maybe you can share whether that consists for you in a sales philosophy or sales culture.
Yeah, cool. So initially we had the culture code, which actually is a code because it was made by our CTO, who's a developer, so everything is about code. And that's really our operating system. We moved now to a very customer-based approach. We've always been, but for many reasons we could talk about that, but now we really have a strategy where all our efforts are centered around the customer, and we want to be accountable for that. And so we asked our customers what was important for them, and we have basically 9 principles that they came up with, and we rate ourselves every year on those principles. I could tell you a bit more about them. They are available online on Customer Code Hubspot, you will find them. One of them would be like to treat person like person and not like personas, or in sales to earn the attention of people and not to steal it, or to not manipulate people. But this is really more than for sales. For sales, we build on this basically a philosophy of only selling to people when we are confident that they will see value. And in many companies, sometimes you just want the revenue more than the success of your client. And I think we really value the success of our clients first, and the numbers will follow. So that's basically the main concept of it. I could tell you a lot more, but basically the sales philosophy of HubSpot is then based on few attributes. We look in the people we hire and values, and we would look at this HEART acronym, whereby every letter means something, and the H would be humble, so we look for humble salespeople, empathetic, remarkable, adaptable, transparent, and that would be really the common ground of people we hire. And yeah, humility is not always the most seen value you can see in sales, so it helps also to bring some people who are really open to feedback and to be wrong, basically, in a nutshell.
I just have a follow-up question before you guys share your sales philosophy. So I wrote down here, like, earn my attention, don't steal it, solve for my success, not your systems. So these, as you said, seem to be values that might contradict with sort of easy growth, easy revenue growth. Can you explain a bit the thought process of, so this culture comes from above, it's the values that you stand by, and how do you create a system where, you know, even the challenges that you yourself define in this culture don't clash with your sales objectives? So how do you organize your team or the people around them to be able to meet those principles, even if they're not that obvious? Is it hard?
I'll try to answer this one. Wow. So just on the one you said about solving for the success and not the systems, we focus on the buying experience more than the selling process. So we really try to embrace the buying experience and to make it seamless for the buyers. So we don't want them to feel that they are put in a sales process, or that there is this or this process or operation that we need to tell them, yeah, but you need to do this, that. We want it to be seamless for them. Since you said something very important is how do we make our numbers on the back of it, especially since we're a freemium platform, we have a lot of users who have many questions and we want to help them out. But the thing is that if my salespeople spend 100% of their time helping free users, we might not grow our revenue. So we at HubSpot built a team on the back of this, which are the coach, the inbound success coach. It's a team of people that help for free to implement HubSpot, the free version of it. So my sales team can delegate this to a dedicated team. It's a lot of investment for HubSpot to basically pay a lot of workforce for a free implementation of the platform. But that's how we do, so the salespeople can stay quite focused on the projects that will need buying the paid version of HubSpot.
Thank you very much. Mathilda, do you have a sales philosophy at side?
Yes, of course. I would say we parallelize sales philosophy with sports a lot. So we have 3 core values. The first one being be champions. And this value evolves all around for a very successful team. There is a lot of hard work that is going behind it. And in order for someone to become a gold medalist, you never see like all the sweat and tear that goes behind it. So it's all about kind of keeping the right mentality. So that's number 1. Number 2 is all about being buddies. So someone explained this to me really, really well. So an individual can go faster, but a team can go further. So it's all about how kind of you help each other to go further as a sales team. And the third one is fight for yes. So you probably all know that you have to hear 100 no's before you hear the first yes. So it's all about how you keep your positive energy and keep pushing day in, day out in order to make it a success.
Great. And you would, the same question, so you would consider these are sort of top-down values, so you need to structure the team in order to respect that? Or did you, I mean, I know you joined recently, but from what you've experienced, maybe also in the other companies, do you see that the sales team organizes itself and improves and goes the extra mile, and then the values of the sales team are defined? Or do you think that it's the culture that sort of imposes a way of working?
So I think that even, like I was at Deliveroo before, so there's something in each company's DNA that kind of comes from the founder. So I would probably say there is a top-down kind of approach, but if it's like the founders, like the first hires that they do, embody these values, so then it has like a bottom-up as well. So it's kind of a combination of the two, but I would say it definitely starts from the founding team and kind of gets nurtured down. So yeah.
Shalom.
Same question.
Yeah, also since you were there from the very beginning, maybe you had the chance to see the evolution. And if you could add what you would recommend to a company that's just beginning, you know, how important it is to think about this from the very beginning or not, or to not get weighed down by processes too much initially, it would be great to have your thoughts about that.
Sure. So basically at Aircall, we also have values, and we actually just rename our meeting rooms according to those values, which are ambition, team spirit, care, and transparency. There is also one meeting room which has been renamed according to our sales culture and what we try to implement in the sales spirit. And the name is To the Moon. This refers to one of the sentences said once by our CEO, Jonathan Geloff. So the quote is, shoot for the moon. If you miss, you will land in the stars. And this is something we really try to implement in the sales team, always having big ambition, big targets, and always dream about big achievements. Actually, you refer to my previous experience within Aircall. So I joined the startup when I was when the startup was very young, and this discussion around the values arrived when we started to be around 50 people. As you said, like every company has a DNA, and the founders try to implement this DNA within what they are currently creating. But at some point, you just need to sit, think what makes you unique, and trying to keep that when you will grow. And that's what that has been very important to just sit and discuss about it.
Okay, great. And so there's this, so at Pipedrive, I heard about their recruitment strategy. And what they said is that, as you mentioned with the HEART acronym, they have certain values that they expect from their salespeople, and the values that they expect from their salespeople match the company values. And what they say is that no matter how much they like a candidate, they score that candidate on out of 10 or something like this, and if the candidate scores less than a 7 on those values, then they won't recruit them. Can you explain a bit about sort of the inherent traits that you see in people at the recruitment stage and how that ends up developing for them as salespeople? Do you see that you're able to acculture them and integrate them into your culture, or is it something you need to look for initially and it's very, very hard to move?
Cool. So when you hire, I think we do behavioral interviewing in Hubspot. So we try to base every single decision we make on previous experiences, and we would ask them a lot of examples with like results on everything. From your question, if I understand well, so the other things that for me are easier to build would be the skills. So like many examples of skills, values and attitude in life towards specific situations are tough to change. So humility, for example, like you can change it. Of course, I've done it myself. Like I worked on my humility. On many other examples, like you can work on it, but it has to come from the person. You can teach a skill someone, even though he doesn't really want to learn it. If you teach him over and over, he will learn it. On value, or on attitude, on coachability, on receptiveness to feedback, on whatever it is that are more value-based, honesty, transparency, empathy. It's very tough to teach empathy. It has to come from the person. So that's what you want to assess, I'd say, in an interview, is like what level of, initial level of values and attitude does he have, and how willing he is to work on himself. And I think in HubSpot, we talk a lot about growth, but not only of revenue, of personal growth. And so we try to assess the level of willingness to develop personally on strong stuff to develop.
How do you assess that? Is it something you measure? Is it like frameworked, or is it just one-on-one meetings? And
so yeah, we have a script of questions. I'd say the more you learn the job, the more you emancipate from those questions, and you build your own style of questioning. But for humility, that would be a lot of example of like, tell me about a time where you were proven wrong and what did you do, and tell me about a time when you really wanted an approach but you decided to take another one because someone told you about this one. Or a lot of examples, I guess, about failing, or about like, tell me about your biggest professional failure. And this kind of stuff, and what did you learn from it, and how do you act now? What was the toughest thing to change in yourself? Walk me through that. And
how often does this happen? Is it
in every single interview? I mean,
yeah. Are these one-on-ones with employees, or is this about?
So that was for interviewing.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
sorry.
so, what do you do within the team to check on how they're evolving on those values?
Well, so obviously we would have a lot of one-to-ones as salespeople with our sales teams, and we would like coach through performance and on deals and on specific like sales-related tasks and actions. But even though you have those conversations, you can see some behaviors from your salespeople where you can actually question that and challenge them, and you can see as they progress that they don't have the same reactions to specific situations. It's maybe a bit not specific enough, but on top of like the very business one-to-ones, I'm sure they would have also in Aircall inside, but we have like more of monthly PDPs, professional development conversations, where I come with no laptops. And it's really about, let's not talk about deals, let's not talk about your performance, let's talk about how you feel, what you want to work on, what are you still struggling with. And if you ask the good questions, you get to deeper levels that are more on those topics, I guess, of like personality stuff, not skills.
Great.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you guys have anything to add?
No, the only thing I would say is that it's true, you have two sets of things that you have to assess. It's the attitude, which is embodied in the values, and then you have the expertise. But this is not only the case when you interview people, when you're hiring, but it's also when, as you're saying in the one-to-ones, when you're performance managing, when you're promoting. These are kind of core things that stay throughout the journey of an employee with the company.
Okay. Maybe one thing like they made me think about it. I had a training a couple of weeks ago, and the trainers just give a simple rule to assess this over the time, because this can be assessed over the time during one-to-one, during a quarterly assessment, month and yearly assessment. And the rule was every day with your team, you should spend at least 5 minutes to talk with, or just a coffee, or go having a smoke if you smoke and we're in Paris. Then per week you should spend 10 minutes with them, and 15 minutes at least per month, and 30 minutes per quarter just to sit and talk about non-operational things.
Great.
And I thought it was a good tip, so that's why I'm sharing it now.
Yeah, it's nice because it's very practical. Thank you very much. So now that we've talked a little bit about sales philosophy, let's kind of think about how sales fits into the organization. So Mathilda, you're CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. First of all, maybe you can explain a bit what that role is. It's still quite, new in this wave of companies, and it's a super interesting position. And then maybe go into why that is. Is it because you consider yourself more of a growth organization than a sales organization, and what that means, what kind of direction we're moving towards?
Okay, let's start with the second question, because
All right.
it leads into the first part of it. So essentially, what we consider a growth organization. So the question you have to think is, who is generating the revenues? So if it is sales, then I would consider that a sales organization. So Groupon, for instance, was predominantly a sales organization. In the very beginning, we didn't have marketing. The closer we had to marketing was like my role, which was revenue management, which was essentially coordinating and ensuring that the sales teams go out and sign the right deals, and ensuring then that the ad would look nice to be attractive for consumers to buy. Outside, which is essentially a marketplace connecting people that want to work a lot more flexibly with companies that are looking for people on a more temporary basis. The answer is not very clear-cut. If you say, can the sales team make revenues if the site operations team is not there? The answer is no. Can we make money if the site operations is there and the companies are not there? The answer is no. And then there's also marketing that comes to the equation. So when you have a marketplace, there are many different stakeholders, and it's extremely important to orchestrate them in order to be able to generate revenue. So think about if you're launching a new city, you have to ensure that you get the companies on board, you have to ensure that you get the siders on board, and you have to ensure that the marketing does the right actions to bring in more companies and more siders. So it's all about, think about it as a conductor. A conductor in an orchestra ensures that everything comes into one piece. So this is the way I see my role at Side, and the importance of having a chief revenue officer within a marketplace.
And do you guys consider yourselves growth organization or sales organizations? And do you think it is evolving as companies get more and more complex, and as marketing intertwines with sales? You were talking about inbound, outbound. How does that affect the way you guys see yourselves?
So basically for me, sales organization are more like traditional sales. So you have one salesperson who monitor a portfolio, usually based on a certain region, and he will have to make it grow either with new sales or expansion. Growth organization are things differently. We basically break down the sales cycle. So for us, we have, for example, what we call CITs, which are siders, who will point out the right accounts. Then we have SDR who will hunt and book some demos. We have then A's who will close the account, and CSM who will do expansion. And this way you have people who are really specialized and will master the skills of each step of the sales cycle. And Aircall, to answer the question, is that we are definitely a growth organization because we really break down the sales cycle. And this way we have a double-digit growth. So it's really helpful and successful.
And do you think it's something, so do you think it's possible that Aircall initially considered itself a sales organization, and as it expanded, as you're able to recruit, SDRs and break down the sales function into many different roles, that you evolve the organization of the whole team towards a growth-driven company?
So yes, definitely. When I arrived, as I said, I was business developer, and basically I was doing everything. I did some sales, support, success, product, basically everything. I was the same person doing everything. So this is what traditional sales organizations are doing. And every time we grow, we divided the sales cycle and we implemented processes to make sure that the information will go with the flow.
I feel there are many questions in your question. The one thing I was thinking, I said it a few times, but I think in terms of sales culture, like some companies definitely have like a real sales culture, like everybody in the company is a bit of sales. I worked in Salesforce 8 years ago, and I remember like how everything, like I felt everybody was salespeople, and I loved the company so much. Like then like one of my mentor is now working as head of sales in Intercom. Intercom has a product culture. Like every single person in the company is product focused, obsessed. So for Hubspot, I would say we're really marketing obsessed. So everybody would be a bit of a marketer. Just on this topic. For the growth versus sales organization, Obviously, if your main KPI is revenue, you'd be maybe more like of a sales organization. We see more our growth into the satisfaction of our clients and into how they will recommend us to new clients. And so, for example, one of the KPI we have for the salespeople, on the back of what I told you around only selling when we're confident it will add value. So let me put it that way. We have a system of meritocracy in HubSpot where salespeople can get promoted if they hit specific metrics. There's no politics, it's just metric based. One of the key metrics to be promoted is churn. Yeah. So as salespeople, you cannot be promoted to the next level as a salesperson if you have more than beep level of churn. We're a public company. So, but it's very high, obviously.
But that's the main metric that you're.
So sometimes you don't want to sign a client because you feel they're going to churn and you feel you're not going to be promoted. So salespeople would not only look at the revenue themselves, even in the sales organization. I don't know if it
yeah, you have a larger
give insights on the question, but.
Well, our sales has also like kind of a target on the ramp-up churn. So like they need to make sure that they'll secure the sales and they really match the needs and the requirements of the leads to make sure that the account will stay with us for a long time. They are not pushed to just sell, they are pushed to sell well.
So about selling well, you guys all have different ways of organizing the teams. So I know that you two have sales academies, and I know that we talked about the fact that Side has squads. Can you explain how the way that you organize the team impacts how broad-minded your salespeople end up being? So how you evolve from, as you said, being just a salesperson to thinking about product and integrating with other teams. How do you structure that so that these people are growing?
So, as you said, we put a couple of years ago an Aircall Sales Academy in place. The goal is really to train our team to become good sales reps. During this academy, we'll go over, of course, Aircall's organization, market and industry specificities, but we will mainly focus on teach them how to make good cold calls and the discovery of the needs, which is key in sales. We have one dedicated person and responsible for this academy who will constantly train them. We train them at the beginning when they arrive for like 3 weeks in a row, and then there is constant trainings on different subjects, integration and other evolution of the product.
The way I think about training is kind of through 4 pillars. So we have the first one, as you also mentioned, like when you onboard someone on overall what the company is doing, what other departments are doing. So that's number 1. For sales specifically, you have an ongoing training once a week that our head of sales organizes with the team. It's very interactive. Number 3, it's self-learn. So we have a tool called Team Drill. So people can essentially answer on their own time different questions.
People from the company are answering other people's questions?
No, it's like we preload a set of questions specific for sales, and then they can, on their own time, through Slack, just respond to the questions.
Do people use it a lot?
Yeah, we actually implemented it. Sonia, who is actually somewhere here, implemented it 2-3 weeks ago, and actually, especially the newbies, use it a lot. Great. It's pretty cool. Then and the last part, which is a bit different, is not like a structured training. It's more, we bring different types of speakers. So we're discussing with EMILIE before. Today we had the GM of Deliveroo from Belgium debating with the ex-head of ops for Deliveroo in France, current director of operations at Miro. What is it like to work in commercial? What is it like to work in operations? And then how the tension arises between the different teams. Also, one of our co-founders, Gaspar, had brought in an ice skater, a champion in ice skating, who spoke about all the kind of hardship to become like a champion. So these are kind of the 4 streams of training. Now, in the way we operate day to day, we do operate a lot more in squads. So we encourage like different teams to work together for a specific project.
And have you seen that this influences the way that salespeople move within the organization? So do you think they're increasingly moving upwards or also sideways to other roles because they become more familiar with what it means and get to build knowledge?
I would say for the time being, it's very functional. So they go up the organization of their specific function, but it could be a possibility that you can also move horizontally.
On the training side of things, so we have an onboarding. It's very much based on classroom trainings. Something very specific to HubSpot is that every single employee will have to basically build a business on HubSpot during 2 months and have a business running with HubSpot. And so you don't do sales training like for the first month, for example. You only do implementing HubSpot for a new business you create. So that's pretty original, because in other companies I would have learned how to sell the product straight, but not really how to use it. And I think salespeople are good at selling HubSpot because they've used it themselves fully, and they usually keep because they have side project using HubSpot. After this kind of project certification and all this, so we have like an academy. So the HubSpot Academy is also an external facing academy where everybody can go and do like accreditation on certifications around methodologies, and that's a way for us to first evangelize the market and to generate leads. But we have an internal academy which is called Learn, and so we have a lot, of course, of self-paced training. There is like the mandatory ones, and you can also pick up the ones you like. And so what we do is there is usually a practicum at the end of it. So you need to record a little video, you need to submit it, you're rated on it, and then there is a bit of a knowledge check. Because sometimes you think you teach and it has landed well, but sometimes they just don't really understand. So the knowledge check is very important. And so we are heavy on training for the first 6 months. And as the person starts to be comfortable in the job, that's where the coaching starts, where we don't provide all the answers, but where we try to facilitate self-solving. Who are the coaches? Yeah. So mostly the managers, but then we do a lot of we would coach people through self-coaching. We would try to do peer coaching, team coaching. Every week we have a session of team coaching where everybody would follow some kind of coaching methodology where everybody is accountable to find their own solutions. But one-to-one coaching is super powerful, but like as many brains you have in the room, if you know how to facilitate the conversation, team coaching is super powerful. And so yeah, that's also what we do. Yeah.
Great. So let's move on to the future of sales. You guys clearly have a lot of very creative, forward-thinking processes in place, like creating your own business before you learn how to do sales. What is first of all, your impression of the way that sales teams have changed over the last years? So there have been a lot of new tools and processes and best practices in place. How have you seen either the people that you recruit or the way that they work change over the last years thanks to these tools?
So at Aircall, people we are recruiting are always been in the sales team like very young. So I won't answer that part of the question. But regarding the way we are selling, I think it has evolved. For example, like many years ago, we were doing door-to-doors. Now we are doing, we did a cold calls, and now we are doing cadences with a mix of emails and calls. And we are currently adapting because we are adding social media. So for example, in the cadences, one of the touch points is looking at their LinkedIn profile, adding them as a connection, or even emailing them after a certain amount of emails or calls. And I think we will go more and more into this direction, adding more and more channels, which will be all connected together. And the goal will be to get together more and more data for better qualification and then better closings.
So sorry, just to finish on that, within that scheme, if you project yourself to the next like 10 years, who will be the most important or value add people in the sales team? Will it be like basically some kind of data analysis? Who will be the key people in sales because of those changes?
Well, I think you will never replace just a sales rep because people like to talk with someone. So this person will be mandatory. But yeah, of course, like data, we can see like now in any company, we have a data department which grow more and more. So data will be definitely important, and they will provide like key metrics in order to sell like better or focus the time of the sales rep on the good leads. So just for example, when you are sending cadences of emails, you will check at the opening rates, clicking rates, answering rate, and you will call first people who are answering you, then people who clicked on your email, and then you will try to reach out to people who just didn't even open the email.
And why is it that people like sales reps so much? So I hear a lot of organizations saying that it's important to keep the human aspect. Do you think it's, like, from what you observe, is it just because the closing rate is better, or is it also a question of brand and making sure that you don't end up into a full data organization? Like, do the customers really need to speak to someone, or is it a way for Aircall to say, we're still a human company, it's not only data, this is who we are, etc.?
Well, I think it depends of the industry and the product. Either you have a product which is really self-service, and then you don't even need to speak to someone. At Aircall, we are on an industry which is a little bit complicated because, like, a business phone system can be simple, but when you go for more advanced feature or more complex organization, you really need to think how you will implement that, and we like to talk with them, to help them, and to make sure that they see also the value of our product and they see how to use it correctly. Because most of the time we are now, as we are a SaaS, we are now selling at people who are not like even not tech people or not people used to implement a business phone system. They are just operational that are looking for something which is easy to set up and flexible and will help them in their day-to-day. So we need to train and educate them to the phone system.
Okay. Thank you. So, yeah.
Which part of the question? No,
the future.
I definitely agree on the human aspect with you. It was funny because I was actually debating with one of my old Groupon colleagues as to whether you actually need to see someone at all or via video calls. And then if it's video calls, would it be the larger companies that you're going to be speaking in video calls with? Or actually the smaller one? Although they're smaller and the value is a lot less, they're going to be probably the less tech-savvy ones. So it's kind of an interesting tension there, but I totally agree with you that if you think about it in stages, the lead gen part, kind of how you create your database, this can be very easily kind of thought through with kind of data and engineering. On the prospecting side and kind of ensuring that we have all the information, all the contacts of the people you need to contact definitely can be automated. What I find very interesting is maybe on the demo side, so at the point where you're actually showcasing your product, maybe you can have like a live or someone on your ear telling you, oh, this person is of this type of personality and like your next line should be X or Y, Z.
We have the
You're
coaching feature if you want to.
Huh? Yeah.
We have a coaching feature at Aircall. So
amazing.
You can have someone who whispers
on your ear. So yes, it depends on kind of, I would say, the stage of the funnel, and some things can be 100% a lot more automated, and some things will need still some sort of human aspect to it.
The future?
Yeah, the future and how
As a
things
theme
have
or-
changed.
Yeah, okay.
No, like basically, if you're 15 years from now,
Yeah.
what do you imagine that a sales team look like? Who's part of it? Are they bigger or smaller?
Yeah. So I had sold for 5 years before going to Hubspot, and that was pretty much chasing people all the time. And you're very likely not to call at the right time and to piss people off. So you were talking about the way, for me what has changed the most, I'm talking about the present, but it's the future as well, is all this concept of behavioral tracking. So you can track your prospects, your customers, use my data but don't abuse it. That's a very important thing. But though you can, rather than calling 10 times someone at the wrong time, now we call once at the right time. It's highly personalized. We know everything he's been doing, and they highly appreciate that. So I decreases a lot my prospection activity, and I'm just super targeted at the right time with the right people, and I know exactly who they are. And so this data behavioral tracking is key today. And if you're not doing it, that's something I highly recommend everybody to do. For the future, all of this is very automated based. And as we are automating most repetitive tasks, and AI is going to replace like some mundane activities, I think people will focus a lot more on high payoff activities, selling, human stuff. And I think as robots will take over a lot of stuff. I mean, in HubSpot today, we have an e-commerce process. We didn't do touchless sales. Now people can buy on their own, and they buy more and more expensive products. So we're wondering up to what point do we actually, like, people are buying super expensive product on their own. They auto-educate themselves, and when they're ready, they come and they buy. So you need the content support system for that to happen. But what I mean by that is that as we automate everything, I think the key skill that will be needed will be critical thinking and leadership. And today, I think what I would think is that leadership is basically flowing down to every single individual contributor, that everybody has this capacity to critically think, be intellectually curious, and move from the science part of sales more to the arts side of space, because I hear a lot about it's 80% of science and 20% of art. I think as we move, we will be left with the art side of things. So that's what I think. Like, if you think about a remote, now it's all about remote, and I think it's very tough to manage people remotely, because I thought that was managing people in Paris from Dublin, but my boss told me, no, it's hiring people and not seeing them ever, and you manage them. But like, you lose a lot of emotional signals and a lot of relationship, and I think the EI, emotional intelligence piece, and relating to people's emotion will be more and more needed, and I think we have to be careful not to lose that and to actually develop it super proactively.
Just one thing to add, it's about AWS, so Amazon Web Services. They do something really smart, so it's a lot of clients can just self-serve, so they don't need to kind of have a high touch of selling. But then they, to their big clients, they sell a lot of added values which have nothing to do with their product. So for example, they have big tech clients that they've sent to Seattle to teach them how Amazon has kind of set culture. So kind of taking it to one step further and having like a super high differentiation without actually selling the product.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. And that makes me think of what you said about content support. How do you create this world around sales that allows people to emotionally relate to the product? And I think at HubSpot, like, you guys are incredible at content. And do you consider that to be part of the art of sales?
Can you repeat your question?
Sure. So HubSpot is known for producing a lot of amazing content, and kind of that accompanies people in their journey to emotionally relate to the product, to understand how it works, and to ultimately be able to self-serve. Do you consider that content is possibly going to be an evolution of the form of the art of selling?
So yes, and I think that's also where the sales role will always be needed, is there is only so much level of personalization you can put in content. Even though smart content exists and we do it, and content is a bit dynamic and adapts, it's a huge investment, by the way, to do content and to cover every single thing that your product can do, and so people auto-educate. But some people, they arrive, they've consumed all the content, they've understood everything of it, they know the theory, but then they call us and they're like, so how do I do it for my business? Because we don't have a blog post that tells them how to do it for their business. Neither a video, neither a certification. So it's more about, okay, now you know everything, let's build it for you. So I was talking with Eli from HubSpot, who's here, and he was telling me, like, now it's only going to be about like highly consultative skills. There won't be need to negotiate, to sell, to qualifying, of course, will remain like the one skill that we need to do and take the time to qualify well, so that we offer a solution. And then the person is going to crave to buy. Like, I mean, I really think that I hope we will not need to be too much of a pushing sales. Like, If they understand everything, then you help them customize them, then they're like, let's go.
Great. So I have one last question for you guys, a quick one before you all can ask the questions that you want to ask. If you were to start again as a salesperson today, what would you learn? What would you focus on?
Honestly, I would do it pretty simply. I would take a shortcut, which there are some amazing schools out there today, like Humine School, that in 9 weeks, you become an excellent salesperson. So I would totally do that, because that builds skill set, builds confidence. And then I would join a startup which values kind of coaches people a lot, but it would give me the freedom to kind of experiment and learn on the job.
Great. Makes it sound easy. That's true.
Well, on my side, I will just really focus on asking open questions. This is the key. Basically, this is the key, and because it will really gives you like the real interest of the person you are talking with, and based on the interest, you will be able to make your sale. This is really something like it has been hard for me to learn. Like it took me almost like 2 years to be like comfortable enough to ask any open questions. I can take an example because we just had a batch of new people in September, and so when they discover the product and they start to do their first calls, for example, I said at the beginning we are integrating with a lot of other tools. Well, they will start their call and they will ask the person like, are you using HubSpot? And if the person is saying yes, they will say, okay, great, we are integrated with HubSpot and we're going to bring you a lot of value like that. But if the person is saying no, then you're just blocked. Whereas Aircall has like 40, 50 native integration. So you can just ask a simple question which goes, how you are working today? On which tool your sales team is working today? And the guy will be able to tell you, well, we are using HubSpot, we are using this, and here you can get a lot of more value to bring in your sale.
Thank you.
So is it like, what would that change if I was to start again
No, maybe you're doing it all right. Like,
yeah, no. I have many ideas.
No, I just mean if you were like a junior sales today,
yeah,
so you're starting in sales and you don't know how to start, what would you do?
Yeah, so that's actually the tip I would like to give. So I would do something different for me. I would be less pushy, and definitely I had some very bad reactions from customers when I started, because I thought I was talking and I thought selling was pitching. And when I arrived, it told me it's 80% listening. I was like, what do you mean? SDR, you qualified, just like, what do you mean? And once you've qualified, you give it to someone else. What do you mean? But that's cool. You learn so much. I would recommend everybody considering a career in sales to focus only on the qualification part of it first, so you become a specialist. If there is one tip I could give is like, and that someone in my team is the best sales in the team, and he didn't know much about this when he started. So and he became like he has a business acumen now, like very high, and he understands like most of situations he's been told. He's never say you understand if you don't.
Yeah.
And I was talking to CIOs early days, and I was not at all from that background, and they were telling me about integration and stuff. I was like, yes, surely we can do that. And it needs a bit of self-confidence. Someone in my team never ever said to someone he understood if he didn't. And I'm telling you, he learned quite fast. Yeah. So that's my tip. Like, don't pretend you understand.
Give a really big round of applause for our panel.
Family.